Welcome to the Brohoyo podcast, the podcast about gacha in general and Hoyoverse games in specific. I'm your host, Steven, and this is my co-host, David.
Hey, everyone.
And this week, we're going to be playing a game of my own twisted imagining, Swipe, Save, Skip. The premise of the game is that you've been given a $100 gift card by a major telecommunications and broadband provider. You have 90 pulls worth of currency. So, do you swipe and use the card if you happen to fail the 50-50? Do you save your currency and maybe wait for the character to come on a rerun if you happen to fail the 50-50? Or do you skip the character entirety? It's more of a general feel. Those of you who are familiar with FMK probably have a general idea of what we're going for here. And let's jump right in. So, Dave, we're going to start with Venti. Would you swipe, save, or skip Venti? And why?
Yeah, so before I get into this, I do just want to note that I love the fact that the gift card that we have in this hypothetical is specifically from a major telecommunications and broadband provider. That is the level of detail Steve has gone to. Just a random $100 gift card. It is specifically from a telecommunications company. Sorry. Anyway, so to your question, to the point of the game, right? So for Venti, on my actual account, I wasn't playing Genshin yet when it had. So this assumes essentially that I have a beginner account, right? That's where I'm coming from the frame of mind. We have the hindsight of being in 4.7, but let's go back in time to 1.0, and I'm on a new account, and I have 90 pulls by myself, and then I have the $100 gift card. What do I do? So I would say for Venti, for me, he would probably, again, going back to 1.0, being one of the first 5 stars, this would probably be a swipe. Then I would, if I fail the 50-50 with the 90 pulls I have, I would probably swipe to obtain Venti. Even knowing that he falls off once Kazuha was released later on, even knowing where we saw the direction of the game go now, because to me, Venti for a long time was, he made Spiral Abyss and grouping enemies and doing time domains and things like that a lot easier. And I think that you would get enough Primo gems back because you can clear things faster in Spiral Abyss, or it would make events less headachy in terms of doing timed trials. That the juice would be worth the squeeze. That again, even though you're gonna fall off eventually, I'm gonna squeeze everything I can out of you until future characters do come out. So that's where I would stand with on Venti. He would be a swipe for me. Ironically, not even on my account. I don't even have a Venti. But what about you, Steve? Where are you with Venti?
Venti is a save for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. Early on, he was very good. He was a very solid character. I think what would really prevent me from making him a swipe is that he does fall off. Knowing what we know, he does fall off quite a bit in the future. And that, to be honest, he's just not a character that resonates with me. He's the only Archon that I don't currently own. And unfortunately, whenever his banner comes up, he tends to come out around other characters that I'm saving for and wanting. I will have a full Archon collection. I have a dream that one day I will run a all Archon Spiral Abyss, go and do that. But at the
For both
moment,
teams. So yeah, so 8 Archons.
8
Yeah,
Archons, run it, do full Archon Spiral Abyss, just power through it. But today is not that day, and he would be a save. I'd definitely throw the free currency at him, but the swipe, not quite there.
Okay. Now, so I believe he was the first banner in Genshin. Let's jump to the first banner in Star Rail and throw Seal. I'd say Seal, but I think it's Sealy.
I've watched too much Evangelion. She's Sealy.
Okay. And maybe that's where I'm pulling it from, too. I guess I've never gotten the official pronunciation on her. But for Sealy, for you, is this a swipe, a save, or a skip?
I'm going to be honest, this one's a little bit tough. I think for me, Sealy is another save that I would use the free currency, but if I failed the 50-50, I don't think I would swipe for her. Part of that is because, again, on my own account, I don't have her. And the other is that she's very good. She definitely has some stuff coming down the pipe in the future that will help her out, Mono Quantum, etc., etc. But again, she was just a character that didn't quite resonate with me. She's a little bit too flat for me to really latch on to her, in my opinion. and not in the. You know what? I'm just gonna let that drop. So what do you think?
You meant flat, not in. She was flat. She had a flat personality for you, not flat personality for you.
Yes, yeah. Like I said, I'm just
All
gonna
you,
let that
all you
one drop.
degens out there.
Yeah.
He was not trying to be a degenerate right there. We have our degen moments, but that wasn't one of them. So for me on Sealy, so I was it. We were Star Rail Day 1 players, and for the Sealy banner, I skipped her. I do not have her on my account. But going back, knowing what I know now, and you mentioned the reason I would want to pull for her now and why she would be a save for me would be Mono Quantum. I want to try a Mono Quantum build. I have 3/4 of the necessary pieces for the Mono Quantum build. And just right now, I'm currently subbing in my Gambling Goblin, Ching Chi,
QQ.
yeah, QQ, Queen King Chi, or whatever her name is, the Mahjong girl. She is currently subbed in as my 4th member on my Mono Quantum team, which is still in development. But having Fushuan, having Silverwolf, Sealy would be that 4th piece that I need to make that Mono Quantum work. And Sparkle, Sparkle being the 4th. I have those 3, but it's just Sealy I'd be missing. So she would be a save for me, just solely so I could run Mono Quantum.
Okay. Well, jumping back to Genshin.
Pull back Genshin, okay.
Yep, we're going to jump back over there. The second banner was Klee. So, Dave, would you swipe, save, or skip for Klee?
I think I know what your answer is going to be, going back to when we did our favorite Genshin characters. I'm pretty sure Klee is your daughter Fu number 1. So I think I know what the answer is going to be for you. For me, it was in real life, and it is still now a skip. Klee, as much as you love her as your daughter Fu, she does not resonate with me. Gameplay is pretty clunky, which I think even you would admit to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just there's other folks that do her job a bit better. And while she is cute and adorable and gets her spotlight during the Archipelago Islands summer events, which it's getting to be that time again, and to getting to be that time of year again, she would be a skip for me. I'm not rolling on that banner. But Steve, in the maybe the most obvious selection, what would you do?
Swipe. As you mentioned, she's my daughter Fu. I would swipe in a heartbeat. Her trailer was hilarious. She's my favorite character in Genshin. The fact that she gets all the attention in the marketing just sits well with me because I like Klee. Klee is a favorite. I fully admit that she is a clunky character to play, that she is definitely not optimal. She has a hard drop off. In my dream of dreams, when they eventually get around to releasing level 100, Klee will get an update and get some quality of life fixes and be brought up to snuff. But at the moment, I recognize that she is weak, but you know what? I'd have to swipe. I need my daughter Fu.
Fair enough. And then taking it back to Star Rail, we got the Lightning Lord, Jing Yuan. We swiping, saving, or skipping, Steve? What are we doing with him?
He's another swipe. I've got 2 swipes in a row here. I know that I always. The funny part is I always get his name wrong. I get him mixed up. But Jing Yuan is one of my favorite characters. I'm a sucker for stands. He's got a stand. I'm probably going to end up having to pull for all of the generals of the Laofu because apparently they all have stands. So,
now, when you say stands, can you clarify that?
Yeah. Sorry,
that was terminology I wasn't familiar with until you started using it.
No. So a stand is from the comic JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It's a basically ghost person that stands behind a character, which is why they're called stand, because they're standing behind them. It's Japanese comic. It makes it sound cooler because for them, English is foreign. For us, it just sounds goofy. But it's basically a second character that is attached to a character that can do cool things, cool anime things. In the case of the Lightning Lord, he has a giant lightning guy who hits people with a spear or a glaive, and I'm all about that. Similar to, he's not on the list, but Razor would also be considered to have one. He's got the ghost wolf that hovers over him. That's just an aesthetic I'm all about.
Thank you. Yeah, you'd been saying that before. I was like, I don't think we ever really clarified what that was, and I knew I had to look it up when I heard you mention it the first time, because I had not watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
You should fix that, but
I should fix that. Okay. So for myself on Lightning Lord, similar to Klee, was a skip in real life and is a skip here. I'm not rolling at all, even knowing what we know now about Star Rail and where it's gone. While I do like some of the things the roles he plays in the story, quests and events, and he has some pretty badass moments in a boss fight or two. I won't go into too much detail on that for spoiler purposes in case you're 6 patches behind. But yeah, ultimately going to be a skip for me. I just there are characters that do his role, I think, better than him, and also for reasons that will be determined in a few characters. His elemental role as lightning is filled by somebody else that was going to be a swipe for me. So if that doesn't narrow it down, I don't know what does about a future pick I'm about to make.
fair enough, fair enough. Well, as a dead giveaway as my Klee swipe is, I suspect that the upcoming Genshin character is going to be an easy swipe for you, Dave. Zhongli.
Yeah, my Geo Daddy, knowing what we know now, even at the time, like even before they reworked his skill set, I was down to pull for him. Yeah, and then obviously there was the whole controversy and a lot of drama between content creators, which is well documented and not the point of this discussion. So you can go look that up if you're wanting to on your own. But I thoroughly enjoy his aesthetic. The voice actor does a great job playing him and just really embodying who Zhongli is as an Archon, as an Archon disguising himself to try and be a normal person in Liyue. It's great. And he's very stoic and very good, and he just makes content really easy because I don't have to worry about being staggered or being knocked down so much. So it's combat on easy mode, and then yeah, Geodaddy's got the aesthetic, right? So that's a swipe for me, pretty easy. How about for you?
I'd have to say he's a swipe for basically all the reasons that you mentioned. Just ease of gameplay. The sort of other behind the scenes reason is that the support that I would normally use, the sustain character that I would normally use in Genshin, didn't come out in 1.0. So I would be completely without a sustain character other than Barbara or Jean if I did not. So knowing what I know now and looking forward, yeah, I think Zhongli is an easy swipe.
And then jumping back to Star Rail, we'll jump to our hacker friend Silverwolf. And what are we doing with her? We skipping, saving, or swiping?
So I think she's a save. And I'm a little bit torn about that because, as a lot of people might remember when she first came out, there was a lot of talk about how she is basically future proof. And to a degree, I agree with that. But I will say the fact that she is single target and a lot of what her kit does has been offloaded onto other kits. As an example, Firefly, who just came out, is able to self-impose fire weakness onto enemies, really devalues what Silverwolf brought to the table. There's also the fact that we've hit a point where, to a certain degree, you can just kind of power through toughness, where you don't have to worry as much. You can just brute force through it. You don't need to break toughness bars. I do like her, so that is why she's definitely at least a save. But I would use the free currency on her. But yeah, I can't go to swipe, unfortunately. What are your thoughts, Dave?
Yeah, so as a Silverwolf user or whole on my account, she was the first banner that I pulled on in Star Rail. I literally, it was a struggle bus early on in Star Rail because I didn't pull on anything aside from the standard banner with what currency they gave you, which even when a game launches isn't so much in Hoyo versus World. But that being said, I would agree with you. She would be a save. So I'm using the 90 pulls that I have on the account to pull for, and if I lose the 50-50, so be it, unfortunately. But yeah, she's similar to what you mentioned in terms of how we discussed her at launch, was she's future proof. Oh my gosh, she enables so much. And then as we've seen these different game modes come out that cater to different AoE type of play style, or we get new mechanics brought in, in terms of super break damage and stuff of that nature, and characters like Rune Mei, I mean, she's still viable and still, I would say, on the higher side of a tier list, but she's not sitting at the top like she once was. Now, that 4-star light cone we got when she came out, we are all still using that for some Nihility character or another. That's probably in your active lineup, right? If you're playing Nihility. But her as a unit, yeah, the defense shred, stuff like that. People, as more characters are able to self-apply the weakness that they need to on the character, it will only diminish her value. But even with that, I would still say she's too good not to skip, but not great enough anymore to have to swipe.
Agreed. So we're gonna jump over and Albedo. Would you swipe, save, or skip for Albedo?
So this is the 4th Genshin character we've talked about, and it will be the 3rd one that's a skip for me. Like, Albedo doesn't move the needle for me in any capacity, from a lore standpoint, from a personality standpoint. Yeah, just doesn't. And I know there was, I talked like about Silverwolf and Celia's for the mono quantum team. Well, there was a world where there was a mono geo team, and Albedo was on it, but I don't really have a desire to create that, just maybe in part because I don't view his gameplay very fun. Plus, a lot of the fun in Genshin is elemental interactions with each other, and Geo just doesn't do that. Oh, a shield against that specific element. Ugh. So it's going to be a skip for me. But what about you, Steve?
It's going to be a skip as well, but it's a little bit more complicated. I do own Albedo. I do enjoy him. It's just, unfortunately, as you mentioned, his kit is just very clunky. It suffers from a lot of early Genshin problems. The flowers that he summons are too easily destroyed. They count as a geoconstruct, even though that sort of geoconstruct idea has disappeared over time. More and more things are just not considered geoconstructs with future geo characters. And he's not bad. I used him in my Eula team just in order to add more damage to hits, because it's a free 20k damage if you build him right. He's build him off of defense. And for a while, his best weapon was a 3-star weapon, so he was good value for money for a time. But yeah, I don't think that I could justify using either free to play or definitely not the card on him. So he'd be a hard skip.
And even from an exploration standpoint, using his construct as an elevator to go up, I mean, that's been outpaced by characters that can jump super high or.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, the elevator thing ends up becoming more annoying than helpful in combat, especially if you accidentally walk over the flower.
Yeah,
the whole thing.
Geo constructs, I think this is maybe why they phased them out and are a little annoying in combat. His elevator, I can't tell you how many times I've accidentally climbed Zhongli's pillar. Even though I'm still loving Zhongli, I'm still going to use him in my team. I've accidentally climbed that pillar more than I care to admit when I'm trying to like run around and do combos. Anyway.
Yeah, if he had summed it behind him, that would have been really helpful. Right in front of him. But anyways.
So jumping back to Star Rail, let's see, the next character after Silverwolf was Locha that we wanted to talk about. So a healer type, and for this one, I did skip because of where his banner fell in terms of what the schedule was looking like, because Silverwolf was, I think, right before him, and then Kafka was going to be shortly after him. And so I skipped over him because I didn't have enough to guarantee, and I really wanted Kafka and I really wanted Silverwolf. But knowing what we know now, I think if we had done this like maybe 3 or 4 patches ago, I would say it was a swipe.
Okay.
Just because when he came out, he was the best sustain in the game.
I mean, I would argue he still is, but yeah.
And he was for a very long time. And I think he's fallen off slightly. I know you said you'd make the argument he's still the top. I would make a different case, but I would say for him now. I would definitely use my 90 pulls, see if I win the 50, and then if I hit, awesome, fantastic, he's going in. But if I miss, just knowing what I know now about his places.
Well, for me, I agree. He's definitely a save. And when I say he's the best sustain, I would argue he is the best sustain solely on the grounds of he is the best to sustain. The problem is that he doesn't bring anything else to the table. That there's too many future characters, even in 1.0, that are going to do his job plus something else. He suffers the same problem as Bailu, where he's really good at healing. Well, in his case, he has the advantage of having a cleanse as well. So he's able to remove debuffs and dots and so on and so forth from characters. But he's just really good at one job, and more and more Genshin Honkai is moving towards needing characters that can kind of wear multiple hats, because you only have 4 slots. You only have 4 character space. So wearing multiple hats as a sustain is actually valuable, where maybe in like the DPS role that's less viable, less good. But at least in the sustain role, I think more hats is going to be the direction that particular role moves. Regardless, he's a save for me. And let's move right along. We're going to jump over to Genshin again. And Ganyu, Dave, would you swipe, save, or skip for Ganyu?
Yeah, so before I answer that, just one quick clarification I realized. So we've been referring to these characters as like, oh, the one in 1.0 and 1.0. And we know that a lot of these characters weren't actually in 1.0, they were in 1.x, right? So that's what we're talking about. The 1.x characters, I guess, would be the more accurate description. So it was a small thing sitting in my head, but I just wanted to clarify that for those that are listening and saying these characters weren't around at 1.0. Correct. It was 1.4 or 1.3. So that's what we're doing for the characters. Anyway, Ganyu. So I am a Ganyu enjoyer. I am a Ganyu haver. I have her signature weapon. I believe it was the Atlas bow. And like I did in real life, I swiped.
Okay.
She is a swipe for me. Some people will view her gameplay as boring, but for me I really enjoyed that only because I'm on PC. Man, if I was on mobile, she would not be a swipe. This would be a pain in the butt if I was on phone. But being on PC, aiming with a mouse for the drawn bow, she makes, like, for my weekly bosses, right? She makes that for the battle pass super easy to do 3 times. Because I'll go fight 1 time in one of the newer raid bosses for like Clorind materials, right? Since I just bowled for Clorind on that patch. But for those other 2 times, there's not really any other Ascension materials that I need. So I'll go fight Dvalin at his stage 1. I go in with Ganyu and I literally one-shot him out of the sky, and then he falls to the ground, and then I one-shot the spine on his back. And I do that twice. It takes maybe a minute. The loading times are longer than the actual combat, right? So she makes things like that really easy. She made fighting like some flying bosses really easy, like the water boss early on, whenever you were fighting that hydrostasis one, where she had the falling platforms and she summoned water things, whether it be a crab, a pelican, or whatever. And there were those damn birds in the sky, and you had to wait for them to land, or you had Ganyu and you just froze them in the air and then you just sniped them. Yeah, so I swiped for her in real life, and I would swipe for her again. And I regret not getting her skin when I did have free money from a gift card I had won, because her costume and outfit were great, and I wasted it on a gotcha in another game and had buyer's remorse because I missed. Anyway, Ganyu for you.
Yeah, for me, Ganyu's a skip, mainly because of the exact thing you mentioned. I cannot stand her game. The charge attack.
Delete my number. Like,
just the charge attack bow gameplay doesn't feel good to me. I enjoy it. I enjoy Ganyu as a character. She is the butt of my favorite joke in Genshin, which is the Coco Goat. But no, I can't. That, and I'll throw this in there. The fact that she canonically was so fat at one point she choked a monster to death with her ass is hilarious. I love it. But I can't.
Throwing in some lore for the degens. All right.
Look, that's on Hoyo, not on me.
Yeah. Look, sometimes you get some fun lore that people just skip over. But those of us that are actually reading and not just spamming spacebar to skip, get some tidbits. So coming up next, I want to jump back to Star Rail and talk about Blade for you, Steve. Is this a swipe, save, or skip?
I think Blade is a save for me. In real life, he was a skip, and that was mainly because of someone who's coming right up on the Honkai side. But yeah, personally, I think he's a save. My main argument for him is I do like HP scalers. I enjoy that mechanic in a lot of games. His sort of sacrifice life play style. The fact that he's also, I think, one of the few wind DPS who is not a dot character and is also not in 1.x of Honkai, so she will not be appearing in this game for the moment. But yeah, I think I think I'd be willing to use regular currency on him, but that would be it. I also wouldn't be necessarily too broken up if he didn't come home, but he's definitely worth the attempt, I think.
And I'm with you on that. I think going back, knowing what I know now, he would be a save. I would use the 90 pulls that I have, but I wouldn't swipe the gift card full form. And I think part of that is what's interesting with Blade, and we mentioned this last week with a comparison because you had brought up Bronya versus Sparkle, and so we went down a bunny trail last week. And he and Jingliu are the two characters specifically that Bronya is the better support unit for. Sparkle is better for some of the other ones like Imbiber, Dong Hung, and so on and so forth. But so as somebody who at launch had Bronya, got Bronya relatively early on, I should say, and focused on building her as a great support, even though Bronya maybe falls off in the general pool, he would fit with her. And just you do the -1 speed strategy, which is Dong Hung, let's say, not Dong Hung, and Blade has 138 speed, and then Bronya has 137 speed, right? So he goes, she pulls him back up to the top, he goes again, type thing. But yeah, he'd be a save for me. Pull the 90, don't use the gift.
Fair enough. So since we talked about Honkai Blade, let's talk about Genshin Blade with Zhao, his shorter, younger brother. What are your thoughts, Dave?
Yeah, shorter and one could argue edgier brother.
I don't know. Blade's pretty edgy.
I don't know. Yeah, both have a lot of angst. Well, I guess True Blade technically cut himself. So,
I mean, it is crawling beneath his skin, but continue.
But for Zhao, Zhao is going to be don't roll at all. I do not have a Zhao on my account. He was a skip for me. Been a skip for me in the rerolls or on his rerun banners. Excuse me. His gameplay, zipping and zooming and running and jumping and slamming down, isn't like, to me, it doesn't like feel like what Genshin's necessarily about per se. And it could be fun to zip around like that. But for me, with what Genshin is and where Genshin's gone to in terms of game modes and quote unquote end game content, MOC, or not MOC, Spiral Abyss, it just takes a lot of time. Like that's just there's inefficient in terms of it doing damage and zipping and jumping and diving and waiting for all this to happen, as opposed to actually just attacking or using skills type thing. So, what about you, Steve? How do you feel about our angsty boy?
I think our angsty boy is another save. I do actually enjoy his gameplay from what little I've gotten to play him in Trials. I don't own him, but I do think that he would be... He's a solid save. If I got him, I'd be happy. If I didn't get him looking at what's coming down the pipe for Genshin banners, I think I'd be able to console myself with what we eventually get. But yeah, as far as Zhao goes, I think he's a solid save.
So jumping to Star Rail, I think we all know my answer on this one. I did hint at it, tease at it a little bit earlier, but Kafka, obviously that's a swipe for me. Step on me. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Kafka's fantastic. I love the idea of damage over time spells in any MMO, any RPG type thing, and the fact that she enables those to be that much better. And she's kind of and you're introduced to her very on in the story. She's got this bit of mystery about her. Yeah, I like everything about her. Her intro trailer was fantastic, and the violin stuff and everything, the strings and the spider webs. Yeah, that swipe. I'm just gonna stop talking, but yeah, swipe.
Okay. Yeah, I think I will hold up with my original move for Kafka, which is save. Especially for 1.x, Kafka really doesn't quite come into her own until Pinnacle, and maybe that'll change. We're still...
In terms of, are you talking about player mechanic, not story
player
plot?
mechanic, story plot, and so forth. Again, she's a save. I would definitely throw the free-to-play currency at her, but which is what I did in real life. But she's one I'd be willing to wait on a reroll until Black Swan or somebody else comes out, another 5-star Nihility character comes out that really, for lack of a better term, turns her on and makes her team really function a little bit better. She's not bad in 1.x. She definitely has 4-star characters that she can work with and function with. But I'm going to be honest, with my dot team, it's more of a Black Swan team with Kafka as an enabler than, let's say, Kafka team with Black Swan there, if that makes sense, in my opinion. I like Black Swan more. But she is a future character that is not here.
I mean, they're both wonderful, but yeah, Black
Yeah.
Swan is technically in the 2.x's,
Yeah.
so she will not be a part of today's discussion. But yeah.
If she was, this would be a swipe, but since she is not here and not for consideration, just a save.
You both just said we'd swipe for her. She's not for consideration in our discussion. But hey, let's throw a curveball out here. I want to keep it with, and we mentioned him earlier, or I did in our discussion about Blade, Imbiber Dong Hung. For me, in the game, at the time when he was released to you, the skip because of where he came in the schedule. I think I was just tapped out on resources from because it was Silverwolf, Loja, Kafka, and then him or something like that. I didn't have a lot of time, and then I knew there was Jing Liu coming down the pipeline. But knowing what I know now, I'd probably swipe for him, honestly. There's not a lot of imaginary damage dealers. So much there have been more that have come in the 2X's, yes, but he does his job really well. He's probably one of the best. You can make the case the best at doing what he does, which is deal a lot of damage. He's probably a little SP unfriendly, hence why Sparkles is better support than Bronya, because Bronya is also technically SP negative. But he would be a swipe for me. Also has some really cool animations and roles and boss fights, which kind of maybe sold me on him a little bit more. And his history and stuff, like in the story, is really cool as far as like what he is, which is good because the Dawn Hung normal character, the 4-star character, very boring, very mundane. And then Imbiber Dawn Hung, badass transformation. Like it's the Clark Kent to Superman transformation, almost feels like. Except for at least Kent is also cool, whereas Dawn Hung is just. But how do you feel about the Imbiber, Steve?
Unfortunately, he's another one that I'm in the same boat as with Kafka, that without Sparkle, he's not unplayable. In the same way that Kafka is not unplayable without Black Swan. I feel like without Sparkle, he's so constrictive. He's so specific in how you have to build him and play him. And honest truth, he's also auto-battle unfriendly, which is a big knock against characters for me. I like my auto-battles. So that being the case, I think he's a save. I fully admit he is a powerful character with a really high damage floor, but just doesn't fully come online until Pinnacle for me. And I don't own him in my own account. So in a lot of ways, I guess I don't know what I'm missing, but yeah, I would mark him as a save. But with that said, we're going to jump back over to Genshin and peek behind the curtain. Part of the reason why you're going to start hearing multiples of Honkai and fewer of the Genshin is because there were rerun banners in Genshin, so there were fewer 1.0 characters. So the pace is going to change a little bit. Regardless,
so who's next?
Hu Tao. Hu Tao is
Hu Tao.
next. So for our wonderful rapping mortician, would you swipe, save, or skip?
So Hu Tao has a special place in my heart, being like my first 5-star banner character that I hit on. I think Jean was my first 5-star, but she was my first limited banner 5-star got. So a special place in my heart, but trying to be as unaffected by that possible. I think in reality, it's probably a save. I'll probably use the free currency on her. So I think a very strong fire DPS character. Even knowing what we know now, I think she still holds a pretty decent spot in that role and fire applications for those melt teams or those vaporized teams. But yeah, she would be a save for me from a purely objective standpoint, if I'm being a little biased, I'd I'd swipe. But that's where I am on our resident saleswoman of coffins.
Well, as you mentioned earlier, I guess you need to lose my number because she is definitely a swipe. Hu Tao is 100% a swipe for me. She is a very solid pyro character who, even at C0, is playable. Like, there's some tech you can do, but if you really just want to do charge attack, charge attack, charge attack, charge attack, she's fine. I had her at C0 for like a year, and she worked perfectly fine with that. No, she's definitely a swipe. Even to this day, I would say that she is a very, very solid character. Now, admittedly, we're going to Natlin, and maybe Pyro is going to start getting some competition because it's been a while since we've seen Pyro DPSs that are in competition with each other. But nah, I would say she's a swipe.
Technically had Lenny or Lanny.
Like I said, in competition with each other.
Yeah, he was it. I just said his competition would be Deha, but we don't need to travel down that path. Sorry, Deha lovers.
Look, when we eventually get to 3.0 of Swipe Save Skip.
All right, well, let's jump back to Star Rail, and we'll jump into Fawn would be next. She is, for me, somebody I have on my account, who was my main sustain for a very long time until I did some reworking of my teams. But for me, knowing what we know now, she's a save. She's not a swipe. She would be a save. I'd use the free 90 pulls that I have, but I would not swipe the gift card because while she is phenomenal and very hard to kill, like you're not gonna die as long as you have decent stats. Like she'll solo tough out things, just wars of attrition, and it's great and all well and good in passing things and beating trials and stuff. But the concern with that for me is I hate not 3-starring things. Like I hate seeing 2 out of 3 stars or 1 out of 3 stars. So oftentimes I won't even finish the thing if I can't 3-star it. And so that's why she's not a swipe necessarily for me. She's not going to enable the speed route for a lot of the end game content, but she will win you the content, just not speedily.
Okay, I mean, slight disagreement, but yeah, I would put her as a swipe. Now, admittedly, Fu Xuan kind of sits in a weird place for me because I have Jing Yuan, the Lightning Lord, and she pairs perfectly with him. She gives out CC prevention, damage absorption, extra crit rate, etc., etc. I think she's an amazing support. Admittedly, I will say that she runs into a similar problem as what Lucha has, where she is very much so on a, like, I will prevent you from dying, but not necessarily give the same level of buffs as other characters who are coming up in this list do from a support side. So I could see an argument from that point where a lot of her non-survivability bonuses are not as impressive as other characters that we have seen in Honkai, but I would say she's definitely solid. Her biggest knock against her is the fact that she's a preservation character without shields, and the simulated universe just doesn't understand that concept of not having shields as a preservation character. But other than that, yeah, she's a swipe for me. So
Keeping it in Star Rail universe, jump to Jingliu, our blindfolded sword woman. She is a swipe for me for a number of reasons. I love her and she loves me because when she came home for me, not only did she come early, but she came twice in one 10 pull, and it was wonderful. Yeah, that was a good time. It also enabled me to get her light cone because she came home early. But yeah, she's fantastic. Like I said, I have her built with Bronya, and having Bronya with the -1 speed strategy that I referenced earlier when we were talking about Blade, that same strategy. And then, like I said, I've reworked my team. So I've actually moved Fu Xuan as my sustain on my Jingliu team because Fu Xuan, like you said, is a great support, gives those crit buffs, which that's what Jingliu loves, as opposed to previously I had Fu Xuan on my dot team, which dots don't crit, so it's useless there. So did a little switcheroo, But yeah, Jingliu is a swipe for me. Love the aesthetic. Love the cutscene for her burst animation. Just really everything about her is a W for me.
So hindsight being what it is, unfortunately, I think Jingli or yeah, Jingliu is she's a save. I just don't use her that much anymore. Not because she's a bad character. Like again, she's in a Don Hung situation where I don't think she's a bad character. I'm just left going. She doesn't have that third character slot filled in yet on her team, on her best of team, where you have a sustain, you have her, you have Bronya, and then there's this hanging fourth slot that you need to fill in, and nothing's really come out yet that I feel works great for that. You could argue Robin might fit in there well, but she's really more of a follow-up support. Other characters that are on the list could go there, but yeah, I don't think she is a bad character at all, just unfortunately one that, for me, other teams have overtaken. And I really hope that some other characters come out that will bring her back into the rotation of what I use. I will also say is basically the only ice DPS on in 1.x. There is definitely value there, but yeah, I think she's a save, unfortunately.
Well, I was gonna say I had a nice segue from one ice lady to the next, but I know we're not on Ula
Not
yet.
quite. We're on.
Damn it. Yeah, we're gonna jump to Tartaglia
Yeah,
or Child.
I'm gonna go with Child. He's
Um,
easier.
our good old Tui friend, right? So Child is for me, he's a skip, unfortunately. For those that are Child lovers out there, that sounds wrong. For Tartaglia lovers, I will go with Tartaglia there. For Tartaglia lovers out there, there's better appliers of Hydro, and I'm a bow user, but I use my ability and then I become a melee person. In cutscenes, looks really cool, like when he's involved in the story and the plot, and he looks like a badass. Yes, in practice, yeah, he suffers from that awesome badass in a cutscene and then bad guy, and then you get him on your team and he's just like, I stab with sword with pointy end type thing. So for me, it's a skip.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. He's a skip. I do have him on my account primarily because I wanted an on-field hydro applier, and because brother hadn't hit for a while, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna settle for this. And I really do feel that it was somewhat of a settled. I am not a fan of our tartar sauce here. I think the biggest pain point is the fact that switching to his swords, the longer you sit in that mode, the longer the cooldown for it becomes. So it's actively encouraging you not to use his ability, which seems counterproductive. Like, I understand that there's a game skill being added there, and there could be some interest in, like, oh, well, the longer you sit there, the longer you can't just chimp out. But he's a character who chimps out, so it doesn't quite work. I think there's a reason why you don't see that sort of transformation in the future. It's just not a game design super in love with. But that being the case, let's jump over to Honkai again. And Topaz, what do you think of our IPC girl?
I think she's a meme, and I swipe for her. She come on, her cutscene in her skill animation is literally stonks. Like the pig running up and Topaz and Numby, adorable. I swipe for her. She's gonna be the crux for a follow-up team. I really like the aesthetic from when we first met her and playing through the story there. And yeah, being one of the pillars of a follow-up team, and that is the next team I'm interested in building. That's the one I'm working on for my third team. Yeah, it would be a swipe for me because she's not necessarily going to be the biggest focal point for a follow-up team, because there are some 2.x characters like Aventurine and then some that are right around the corner that I think will also contribute that follow-up team. But again, she's going to be one of the important ones in there. Plus, it's like the whole IPC gang. You got to get them in a group, and they all have to stand.
She's also a swipe for me. The honest answer is when I first pulled for her, I was pulling for Jing Yuan. That turned out to not really work or not be something that functioned, but it doesn't matter. She's amazing. I'm very happy with my decision, and that is not Stockholm Syndrome. I am honestly very pleased with Topaz as a character.
And then keeping it with Star Rail, move to Ho-Oh, or our Foxtail, our Flame Foxtail. So for me on Ho-Oh, she's a swipe. And if I had lost when her banner came live, I had just pulled for, I think, Jingliu, I had just pulled for Topaz, and then it was her. And I was like, man, I really need a solid sustained character, which she is, a true healer, not sustained, but a true healer. And man, I was clawing and scraping every Stellar Jade in the events that were going on at that point, because I was like, man, I do not want to have to swipe for her. Because I don't want to spend real money, but that didn't mean I wasn't going to. I was prepared to do so. But I did ultimately end up getting her. And but yeah, she's a swipe for me. Provides a lot of great buffs for the team, the attack, dispelling some things, I believe, and then also the energy boost to the team's ultimate when she casts her ultimate. I think it's like 20% or 20 points. I don't remember offhand. Very helpful, very good. And again, her and the aesthetic to me, I don't know if she qualifies as you defined it earlier as a stand, because it's her, and then she has her fire tail as its own independent ghost thing, which, you know, he's attached to this shy, like easily scared fox girl character, and he's, while small, and intimidating ghost fox type guy. Their play off of each other in the story and their cutscenes are humorous to me. So for me, it's a swipe.
I think she's a save for me, primarily because, again, I did not end up pulling for her. Originally, I do agree her aesthetic is great. Not quite what I would define as a stand, but stand-ish, stand-like, standy, standoffish, I don't know. So I would say, from a design aspect, I like her. From a support aspect, I want to like her. I'm going to be honest, I keep on hoping that maybe something else will come down the pipeline and free me from Bailu, who is another character that I love, but at the same time, it is pain to try and use her just because she lacks a cleanse.
Well, your Bailu's what, E3 now?
Yes, yeah. I have an E3 Bailu, soon to be E6, knowing the rate that things are going.
That ka-ching syndrome again.
Yeah, unfortunately. Only in this one, Kiki is actually good. Chi-Chi actually good. And so that's her stand-in. But yeah, she's a save for me. But I believe it's time that we jump back over to Genshin.
And going from one ice sword woman to another. See, that doesn't work anymore because we didn't just do Jingliu. Anyway, Eula, Thief, what you think?
She's a skip, and that hurts to say. I'm not going to lie. It hurts to say that she's a skip, but she unfortunately is tall poppy syndrome. She gives you that big screenshot damage, but she doesn't fit anymore. Like, there's no team that works with her. Her gameplay style has just not been supported. Just not. She's a skip. I don't like saying it. I really don't.
Look, as someone who, when Eula's trailer was announced, I fell in love instantly. It was just elegant, like the way her animations with the great sword look, and it just looks smooth and, like I said, with the graceful ballerina. Essentially, I loved it. I pulled for her. I mean, I have my mouse pad. She's on my mouse pad, and it's not one of those D-Gen ones where it has the wrist rest spot. That's certain things. You all know what I'm referring to. Don't act like you don't. It's not one of those. It's a nice, I don't know if it's like fan made or if this was an official thing. But yeah, it's really nice art of Eula standing in with her sword. And I pulled for her. I made teamwork with her based around, it was like her and Raiden, a Shogun. And yeah, like you said, her play style and damage per screenshot numbers are there, yes, but physical damage isn't the way to go. I referenced this when we were discussing earlier. Like, Genshin, the combat mechanics work because of elemental interactions, and yes, she does have cryo damage, but a bulk of her damage is white damage, physical damage, and that doesn't interact with anything. So you're not getting the freeze comp with her as easily as you would say with a Ganyu, who's a better cryo applier, right? Or Ayaka if you have Ayakas on your account. So as much as it pains me as well, the unbiased would say the objective purely standpoint says skip, even though in reality I'd probably still pull because I love her aesthetic, and I would use the 90 pulls, but in reality, objectively,
Well, you know what? Let's move on really quickly from a beautiful night to a night of beauty. So Honkai Star Rail Adventurine, or not Adventurine. God, I can't even get his name. Art. He's not Arlecchino. What is the name of the red-haired Fire Knight guy? I'm looking at his picture and I cannot, for the life of me, come up with the name of him. Are we gonna have to Google the name of the character? I guess that gives away what I. He's a skip for me. I get Night of Beauty.
oh
Kai Star Rail
yeah, this is pretty
is
funny. This is hilarious to
I
me
he doesn't even
because
appear first in the Google. That's not helping me. Argenti. His name is Argenti. Had to look up
oh,
splash art.
that's so bad. That's so bad.
Neither of
But
us could come up with it, so
look, he's so much of a skip for both of us. Like even when his trailer was launched, I was like, I have zero interest in you as the character. Oh, he has this new mechanic where you can save up. You can basically he has tier 1 of his burst or tier 2 of his burst if you double the energy. And I'm like, that's not a fun thing. The whole point of the fun is using those when you get them, not saving them and saving them. So his kit didn't appeal to me. Yeah, it was a skip for me. We'll keep it short because I know we're pushing on time here.
I will just say one thing. I do like him as a character, but yeah, he's a hard skip. Whew boy. Well, let's move on to somebody who we did recently talk about in another episode.
Rune May. Yeah, didn't for on the original run through, and boy do I regret that. But I did get her on the rerun. She would be a swipe for me. She is one of the best, if not the best, enablers for a lot of teams and supports. She does so much with passive speed boost that she gives just by being in the party to everybody else, to the break effects bonuses that she gives, and through breaking enemies you're essentially stunning them for an extra turn. Yeah, so her kit, mechanics, everything on that alone is a swipe. But the fact that, to me, beautiful character. I like the cut scene when you use her burst with like kind of the walking on water type thing and the strumming. It's not a banjo. It's very cool. And then from a plot story perspective, she's an interesting character. The fact that she drugs you within 2 minutes of meeting you, the character, so that you can't tell the truth about her when you're talking to other people, was hilarious and fascinating to me. Some of the dialogue, that options that you get during those events, the writers had some fun with that, and I greatly appreciate it. But yeah, she's a swipe for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I agree. She's a swipe. She's the only break effect support that we have, and that's definitely becoming more meta. She's in universal support, which is amazing. I pulled for her when she first came out. I don't regret it. Yeah, basically everything you said times 2. But with that said, let's jump over to our final 1.x Genshin character, which is Kazuha.
Canadian Aether. Yeah. So knowing what we know now, I mean, if I had like a relatively new account, I'd swipe for him. The anima application on swirl interactions, the fact that he can suck up and gather up folks more efficiently than Venti. He's the reason Venti fell out of the meta is because Kazuha existed. And so he's more efficient at sucking up energies, which again makes your domain runs go that much quicker. And so yeah, for me, he's a swipe. Still don't have him on my account, but he be.
Well, in the same way that Hu Tao was your first limited 5-star character, Kazuha was mine. I was not able to get Klee. I did end up getting Kazuha. And at the time, there was a lot of contention around him being a Sucrose side grade. But considering I didn't have a Sucrose either at that point, because she's a 4-star, but she's not given to you. You have to get her through pools. Having Kazuha was what I had, and he carried me through Inazuma. I'm happy that he turned out to be as wonderful of a character as he was. But No, I regret nothing. He's my boy. But, and really quickly, we are going to go into our final character. The caveat on this one is that this is all going to be under the assumption that you wouldn't have gotten him free in the future, like we ended up
And
getting him.
you ruined my punchline.
Well, I knew it was coming.
You ruined my punchline. Oh, Dr. Rich, I skipped because we got him for free.
See, I knew that was going to be the answer, though. So
He's good, folks. He's good. Like I said, he's meticulous. He's good. All these caveats down to where the gift card came from. Again, telecommunications and broadband provider. It's still cracking me up. The Dr. Ratio under the caveat that we didn't get him for free. We weren't playing during his event launch. He would be a save in that instance then, because again, he would be part of the follow-up team that you're working to build, and assuming no 2.0 character. Well, I guess technically, because we said we were looking at this through the hindsight of knowing what we know now, Aventurine's right around the corner. And
So is Robin.
Aventurine is an important part of the follow-up team. So maybe I still skip him. I don't know. What are you thinking, Steve?
I'm going to be honest. I think for me, he is a swipe, but that is only because of Topaz. Because I really, really like Topaz. I think if you were someone who Topaz didn't work for you, or the adventure, I think Adventurine is great for that team, but he's not necessarily 100% required. If for whatever reason that you don't like Adventurine, you don't like Dr. Ratio himself, or just follow-ups in general, he's definitely a skip. But if you're going to bring Topaz online, unfortunately at this point, Dr. Ratio is required. Maybe that'll change in the future.
Hey, maybe once I finish building my follow-up team and actually get them built, my opinion on that will change. The time will tell on that, because I know that that'll be the follow-up. It will also probably depend on what happens with Jade, what it looks like, if that hasn't been released yet officially. And then, of course, if I get her, since I did just pull for Ruin May, so I'm back to a 50-50 and not a guarantee. Now, I know we're running on time here, and we went a little bit more in depth, I think, on some things than I wanted to, but I did want to at least talk briefly about some events going on with Genshin, some new characters. We just had Sejuani drop, and then also want to get to some news about some other gachas that we're playing. So let's jump into those next. So looking at Genshin's patch this week, we just had Sejuani drop a new character, and then we also have some events going on. So Steve, I'll let you jump into those any order, whichever way you want to talk about first, the mini games or the character.
Let's start with the character, just because unfortunately I don't have a lot to say about Sejuani. I think from a concept, she's a pretty interesting character. There's some fun ideas with her and her kit, but unfortunately playing her in the character trial was just clunky and not really an experience that I would be looking to play game to game. Her ult is basically a version of whatever his name is, the water dragon's charge attack, where she basically...
Nouvellette.
Thank you. Nouvellette. He's got his Kamehameha. She's got a giant syringe that shoots love beams out of it, but just doesn't quite have the same, let's say, oomph that Nouvellette has. Her E, basically you can charge it up and it will stun characters, a giant bubble, then she'll throw at things and it'll capture them and keep them in place. Similar to the Hydro Sorcerers, Abyss Mages, that can lock you in a bubble. It's that, but for enemies. But it seems inconsistent based off of what I've experienced with it, again, just in the character trial. The team that they gave her was a little bit awkward as well, but long story short, I think there is fun to be had with her kit, but I'm still in the saving for Notlin pile at the moment. Going forward to events, in Genshin, there was the Endless Forms Most Martial that might be wrapping up by the time that this goes live, but it's basically a combat event. You do combat. It's neat. Nothing really over the top to talk about. It's one of the shorter combat events. I do really quickly want to jump over to Honkai. I know that I completed the story for 2.3, the main quest, and basically just wanted to say it was a good coda. Enjoyed the story. I think it's a nice little wrap up, and it taking the story into interesting places. But just for those of you who are longtime listeners, basically from this point going forward, you're probably not going to hear a lot about us talking about Honkai's story until 3.0. Unless something big drops in between, but unlikely. We're moving into the summer, and with ZZZ coming up, that might be taking more of our focus. As far as events go in Honkai, we have the Origami Bird Clash. It's just a matching puzzle. I'm going to say Honey Pop is the game that it's mimicking, but it's not Honey Pop. It's a different whatever that matching game is, and I can't think of it anymore because I'm thinking of the Dragon Ball Z abridged joke about play. Doesn't matter. It's a matching game. It's fine. It's fine. Oh, Candy Crush. There we go. That's what it was. It was play Candy Crush, get cat. So
Come back from the bunny hole.
I know. I've gone off track. I'm moving back onto path. With all that said, how about I toss it back over to you this way we can get this moving again, Dave?
Yeah, so that kind of wraps up our chats and talks with news from the Hoyoverse realm. Something I did want to talk about and news outside of Hoyoverse with Gotcha Games would be recently Nikke, Goddess of Victory, as you guys know, is a game I thoroughly enjoy playing. I'm day one player on that, and we've posted up some videos specifically about it. If you guys do play the game, I know we do account reviews, whatever we want to do to help you guys out. But they just had a live stream for their upcoming summer event, which is going to start, I think, around July 4th, which is when Zenless Zone Zero comes out. So that'll be a busy week for me. And then the holiday itself with family, right? But anyway, as far as the live stream, a lot of fun things to cover. Want to get the quick hitters for you guys. So if you play the game, you know what to have to look forward to. Obviously, with the summer event, there's new events, so new side story, new rewards, obviously, that come with that. If it's anything like last summer's event, they're going to do a whole new like mini map thing that you can walk around in and interact with, similar to what they just did with the casino event they had a week or so ago. They showed 2 new characters that they're going to be having limited banners on, and if they are like last year's summer events, they are going to be the limited banners, meaning these characters will not show up in the standard pool once the event ends, which is typically what Nikke does, but not for their summer events or their Christmas events either. But anyway, those 2 characters, one of them is going to be a beach or swimsuit edition of Sakura, who I believe is going to be a Burst 3 unit. And then the other one is going to be Rosanna, a beach or swimsuit version of her. And I believe she is a Burst 2. I'd have to go back and double check the live stream, which is up on our Discord if you want to watch that in its entirety. It's about, I think, 40 minutes or so. They're also doing a collaboration with Dave the Diver. So basically they're emulating that game as a mini game within Nikke. So with Nikke characters and stuff. There's a couple of costumes that they're going to be available for those that want to buy the battle passes. So I think there'll be a battle pass skin for Guilty. There's going to be a battle pass skin for Maiden. And then there will be, I believe, 2 more skins. I don't know how they're going to give these out yet. They may be related to the Dave the Diver minigame. I believe Mast is getting a skin, and then Anchor is getting a skin, with Anchor being an SR character, all those others I listed being an SS character, which is the highest rarity. The other big thing that's going on right now is they recently did their second popularity poll. So the winner of this popularity poll gets then a custom skin that they will develop and give out for free to all players. The winner of the first popularity poll was Modernia, and we voted on different outfits for her and ended up getting, it looks like she's wearing the commander's white button-down shirt, like as if they're pajamas, right? So that's the skin that won. That's not the one I voted for, but we have to live with it. Red Hood won the second popularity vote, so we are currently voting on her 3 skins that they've got concept art for, and so then whichever skin wins will ultimately be the one that is released in the future for free and given out to all players. So for that one, I believe right now the Skin A, so there's A, B, and C. Skin A is, I believe, currently winning, which is the one I voted for, which I appreciate. It's an elegant long red dress, and she's got like the vintage. It really fits, I think, with her personality. A lot of old-timey, ragtime type feel.
Skin B for life.
Yeah, her bee skin, I think, is like her with like a motorcycle. It kind of looks a lot like Sugar does, who's another character in the game. So that for me, that was too similar. It didn't really get my attention. And then her sea skin concept is like her in, I think, like pants and a tank top, and she's got like, I think, like an animal, like a dog of some kind with her. It didn't really stand out to me so much. To me, like I said, the A stood out, so that's the one I voted for. And luckily, this time I'm in the majority, not the minority like with the previous one. But yeah, so all that, really excited for that. Next week I'll be covering that, I'm sure, when we talk about things once it goes live next week. But yeah, that's all the news I have from that, Nikkei. And then as far as other gotcha games, I don't have too much other news. It's basically been we're gearing up because we know what's in the pipeline with Zenless Zone Zero and all these new characters that we've been pulling in Star Rail, with Steve with Firefly, myself with Rune May, and then for Genshin, me pulling for Clarin, and then Jade, I know, right around the corner for me. I'm looking at that if hopefully we win our 50-50. Steve, you got anything else? Or
yes, I do. Just quick reminder for everybody. So since ZZZ is coming out next week, the current plan based off of the information we have is similar to Wuthering Waves. We will do a Let's Play, and they'll release the actual July 4th, most likely. So we will be missing next Monday. So Monday, July the 8th. No, yes, July the 8th. Sorry, because this is coming out July 1st. So July the 8th, there will not be a full episode. We might or might not put something out that day. But the next episode that is not the full Let's Play will be coming out the 15th. We will be doing the Let's Play, like a full, what we usually did about 2 hours, I believe, was the goal we had last time.
Yeah, similar to our coverage of Wuthering Waves. We'll do the initial impressions where we play together but separately, do that split screen thing in the video, and give our initial commentary and impressions, so you can see that for usually about 2 to 2.5 hours of gameplay. Like Steve mentioned, we're going to be doing that and getting that out as quickly as we can after the game launches, so you guys can see it in action. And then on that Monday, when we would usually put up a podcast episode, we won't have an actual podcast episode. We may have some additional content or some B-reel or some bloopers or something like that, or maybe some account reviews and other various gotcha games, or maybe a Hoyoverse game, who knows. And then be back to our regularly scheduled programming where we can maybe give our full impressions of ZZZ. And like Steve mentioned, that would be out on the 15th. But we do want to thank you guys for joining us this week. Let us know down below who you would maybe swipe, save, or skip in the Genshin 1.x's and in the Honkai Star Rail 1.x's. Maybe you agree with Steve or I on some things, and maybe not on some other things, but let us know. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to also leave a comment down below, like, follow, subscribe to the channel. You can always email us at brohoyopod@gmail.com with questions or suggestions for the show. Our link to the Discord I referenced will be down in the description as well, so you can join us over there for gotcha gaming news, or really any gaming news, not just gotcha. Game nights that we have sometimes, and also content notification. Join us again next week for that launch of ZZZ and our initial impressions while we do a Let's Play style. Until then, keep gaming.